I'm Charlotte Walker, and full disclosure, I am on the advisory board of Daily Cloud, and I do frequently write for it on topics like small business, finance, infrastructure, and technology. Today I'm going to talk to you about an article published on June 22nd entitled "The Whole Social Media System is Corrupt. Here's How Legislators Can Fix It." The views I express in this article are my own, and it's about how social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube violate your rights to privacy, choice, and most importantly, free speech. Any of you who have been deplatformed for no apparent reason know what a serious problem this is. I touch on 3 of the many bills that have been introduced in Congress recently that address these well-publicized issues. But in addition, I bring a new topic to the forefront that no one is talking about, at least not yet. And that is how platforms also willingly enable third-party applications to gain access to user data and to deploy applications within their ecosystems that create fake engagement. It's this fake engagement combined with the algorithms that social media platforms routinely and pervasively use to prioritize, encourage, and boost engagement that are very big contributors to the amplification and spread of misinformation. So let's talk a little bit about what Congress has done so far. It would have been very hard to miss the hearings and investigations that Congress conducted last year and the year before into competition in digital markets. A huge 450 plus page report was published in October 2020. It summarized these activities and made recommendations to Congress. Anyone can read this report. You can find it on the House Judiciary Committee's website, judiciary.house.gov. The findings in the report raised numerous concerns that included the spread of misinformation on social media, market power and concentration in digital markets, like Google's 92% market share of search market and Facebook's 72% market share on social media. It also discussed predatory and anti-competitive actions by big tech to squelch competitors, the lack of transparency of the platforms, poor user privacy and data protection, the danger of algorithms, and the lack of interoperability between the platforms. As I mentioned, there's been a strong flow of legislation out of Congress addressing these issues. 6 of them alone deal with antitrust, as an example. The 3 bills that are not receiving as much press are those that are focused on interoperability, accountability and transparency, and algorithms. That's what I'm going to talk about. These 3 bills are the Access Act, the PACT Act, and Protecting Americans from Dangerous Algorithm Act. The Access Act is all about interoperability among platforms, and it relates to all of big tech. Interoperability is when we use our mobile phone, we can text anyone we wish as long as we know their phone number, anywhere in the world, no matter what operating system they use and what phone they have or what network they're on. The Access Act would force seamless interoperability between platforms so that users are not captive to one single ecosystem and can easily move from one to the next. The PACT Act insists on privacy, transparency, and consumer choice for users and demands that platforms are held accountable. And specifically, if your post is banned, you know why. If you're deplatformed, you have recourse. And when the platforms help develop illegal content or contribute to illegal content or conduct, such as drug or human trafficking, they can be held accountable. And when they do not ensure that consumers have accessible and clear information about acceptable use policies, they can also be held accountable. Now look, I've checked each platform's terms of service and community guidelines, and by gosh, they're just not clear. Worse, the user has to go to so many different places to get the full guidelines. I could do a whole podcast just on that. It's really a joke. Both of these bills would help create a more competitive digital market and would give consumers more choice, more protections, and more transparency. And there are proposed bills that specifically attempt to address free speech. My last bill that I'm going to talk about is just one of them. But first, it's really important to understand that while there are many protections for free speech in the real world, in the world of social media, there are none. This is because of a provision in the 1996 Communications Decency Act called Section 230. This section provides liability protection to platforms for anything that is said or shown on the platforms by their users. But this was enacted at a time when platforms were just not that sophisticated. Today, the platform companies all have terms of use which give the platforms legal carte blanche to take down any post that they believe violates their terms. Public and political pressure has caused them to closely monitor speech on their platforms to do just that. But this has just raised even more concerns because no platform uniformly applies their own rules, and when they do, they don't tell you why. And further, and more importantly, as many people have said, it is a whack-a-mole problem. There just aren't enough moderators in the world that can be trained to review posts from billions of users, and algorithms that are used to try and parse out harmful speech just are not that smart and may never be. We are in the infancy of machine learning and artificial intelligence, and in many cases, artificial intelligence and machine learning is built on shaky ground. So one of my favorite bills that revokes immunity under Section 230 is the Protecting Americans from Dangerous Algorithms Act. It revokes immunity when the platform's algorithms are behind the promotion of speech that is not protected in our U.S. code. So specifically, when algorithms are used to amplify or recommend content directly relevant to a case involving conspiracy to interfere with civil rights, neglect to prevent interference with civil rights, and in cases involving acts of international terrorism. This is a biggie, and if it were enacted, would finally help make social media companies accountable. And these are great steps in the right direction, but Congress could do more, in my opinion. I happen to think that application programming interfaces, or APIs and algorithms, are contributing to many of the concerns Congress and many Americans have. So, what the heck is an API, you ask? APIs are external software program interfaces that have a set of publicized instructions on how third-party developers can interface to their system to gather data or interact with the platform with a software application that they have built. So how does this happen? Platforms like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and so many others can use two types of security for developers to gain access to their API. The first and most secure is an authenticated form of access. The authenticated form of access makes sure that the login information you use is really you. If your login attempt does not pass the test, which could include an encrypted key or a special code you have to get from your cell phone, for an example, you can't get in. It's as simple as that. The second and the most used form of access for third-party developers who want to use an API is the use of what are called bearer tokens. This method of authorization was introduced under the OAuth 2.0 authorization framework, which was organized and published by the Internet Engineering Task Force, an international Internet standards body responsible for maintaining the Internet standards process. The use of bearer tokens is a delegated authorization protocol, not an authenticated protocol. That means that there are absolutely no measures taken to ensure that the token is associated with the actual user. This is only secure as long as a third-party developer has a good intent. If they don't, this presents a very big problem because a programmer can simply use a username and password that they could have stolen, gotten from a friend, or purchased on the dark web to exchange it for a token. That token is what a programmer can then use to gain access to anything, anything, a user can have access to within the environment of the social media platform. And that's a lot. It's posting, tweeting, retweeting, sharing, liking, and even commenting. All of this is, as I said, not authenticated and goes unchecked entirely in the social media platform, except by systems called rate limiting or throttling. These rules limit the duration and number of times a third-party application can interact with the API for a certain task without being shut down. And they are automatic. But if you're clever, and most programmers I know are, these rate-limiting algorithms can easily be circumvented, and they are routinely circumvented, allowing more fake interactions to contribute to the vicious cycle of misinformation and fake news. You're probably asking, why on earth do the platforms allow this flimsy, unsecure way of access? Well, the answer is that this form of access is very flexible and easy to use, and the platforms want that. Their customers are advertisers, analytics companies, and third-party software companies, and that's how social media platforms make money, and billions of it. And some of these third-party applications are applications that try to sell you, the user, services. You, the user, can buy followers and engagement, as an example, from a multiple of companies with applications that help you do that. They too use bearer tokens, and what those applications are doing is using your data, your followers' data, and any other user's data they can access, and leveraging the algorithms in the platforms that are used to boost engagement, like likes and tweets, by creating fake likes and retweets. There are literally dozens and dozens of these apps for all of the social media platforms. All of these fake likes, retweets, and other fake engagement boost the popularity of certain content, and as a result manipulate what you and others see on your feed. And algorithms happen to like the sensational more than the more mundane. Of course they do. Look, Facebook and others are trying to stay ahead of the curve by detecting and deleting millions of fake accounts each day. But seriously, isn't this truly insane when they have the keys to shut this down with their APIs? Well, the truth is that platform companies have no incentive to change this, because this, as I said, is how they make money. But if they were required to make that very simple change in authentication standards for their API by abolishing the use of bearer tokens and also limiting what features any third-party application could access, well, what do you think? I think the problem might not go away completely because programmers are clever, but it would very nearly abolish it altogether. This is something that all legislators and standards bodies should be thinking of. Legislators may be the quickest route, they can simply add it to legislation that is in the works as we speak, including the three that I just spoke about. And the Access Act might be the one that makes the most sense to add it to. So that's it for now. Thank you for listening today. To find out more, please read my article dated June 22nd. The whole social media system is corrupt. Here's how legislators can fix it. Bye for now.